Hi everyone, Jill Perla here. Today we are going to be doing a sailboat painting. Here it is right here. This is a photograph of one I've done a while ago, and we are going to be using an 8x10 canvas, which you can see right here. And that's about the size I usually use. I have my paints. So today, if you want to get your paints out, we want to start with white. I've got 3 different yellows. You don't need 3 different yellows, just one yellow is fine, and then we can mix it with white to get your shades higher, darker, lower. And I've got some blue and some darker blue, a little bit of black, and a little bit of red, okay? So I've got the palette, so if you want to take a look at that so you can see what you need. And of course you can go back and re-listen, so if I went too fast, so, okay. So again, this is the painting. You see you've got a boat here, the ocean, and a little boat here. Remember, we always talk about maybe not twos, try to have odd numbers, something interesting like this one's going off the page. You've got the dark blue water down here, you've got some trees in here, and you have the sky at the top. Okay, sounds fun, right? Okay, and eventually during the class, we're going to be playing Christopher Cross sailing, okay? All right, let's get you down here so that you can see the canvas and what I'm doing. You see I've got my brushes right here. Let me just push this up a little bit further, okay? So I do have the photograph right here. So what we're gonna start to do first, make sure you can see it okay. I'm going to start putting in the sky and the ocean and the trees, so the background basically. And if you notice, there's 3 sets here. So not 3 sets, but you've got 3 sections. You've got the sky in the top, and then you've got the trees in the middle, and then you have the ocean in the bottom, okay? So when you break things up into thirds or something, it just seems a little bit easier, right? So I'm gonna work my way from the bottom to the top. And as we usually do, we start in one section, then we jump to another, and then we double back, okay, so that it all dries. One thing about this painting is that the trees are very thick and you can use quite a bit of paint. And if you do use a lot of paint, make sure you pause the video to make sure that this part dries up so that you can get those sailboats to pop off the page, okay? All right, so I'm going to put this little photograph down. Just kind of tuck that over there, and we are going to get started. I've got my palette here, and I've got my rag here. So make sure you have a rag, okay? And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get that really dark blue, okay? So get the really dark blue. Here it is. Let me just get this out of the way. Slide my brushes over, okay? So they're right there. Maybe if you can see that little, maybe nice. Kind of lay it here. There you go. We'll just kind of lay it there so you can see it, okay? Your reference. So first thing you want to do is, if you notice, the ocean is about 1/3 of the way from the bottom. So just kind of go across with this bright, bright, bright blue, right across. And as I always say, you don't have to make it perfectly straight, but your first step is to just do a blue line right across, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my palette knife, this one right here. It looks like it's got a little red, but it's just kind of, I've used it so much, okay? Let me push that forward. I'm gonna dip my palette knife into that same blue, and I'm gonna bring it all the way across and just cover the whole canvas with that blue, that really bright, vibrant blue, okay? I'm gonna go back to my brush. I'm just gonna add the blue in. And we always talk about the edges. You can do the edges at the very end, or you can do it during the class, whichever. For this class, I'm just going to do the top part, okay? So that's a very vibrant blue. I got this blue, it's like a cobalt blue or a bright blue at Michael's. It's the Artist Loft blue. It's just a very primary, deep, dark, nice, rich color, which I like. Now, if you notice, there's blue on my brush, and that's okay. And here's the deal. What I want you to do is take the painting and flip it around, okay? So notice, this is your ocean. I mean, well, or lake, whatever you want to call it. Lake, ocean, we can just pretend. Where do we want to go today? Let's go to the lake. I feel like we should go to the lake. We'll call this a lake. You can call it whatever you want. If you want it to be the ocean, go for it. But I feel like it's a lake. Well, actually, it'd have to be a lake, right, guys? Because you see those little trees right there? Those aren't going to happen in the ocean. Okay, so we've discussed that. All right, so got the lake. Now what I want to do is jump back up to this sky. So I'm going to keep that blue that's left over on my brush, and I'm going to dip it into some white, okay? And I'm just going to cover the canvas. This is where you might want to get, so you just take all that extra blue, kind of rub it off, and just take it off on the canvas. It's almost like you're wiping the blue off on the canvas, okay? All right, so now what I want to do is get a little bit bigger brush, this one, just so the coverage is a little bit better. And I'm going to go into a lighter blue. I have a little bit lighter blue. And here's the deal. If you only have that one blue that I started with, you can still use that, but I tend to prefer to use a different shade of blue for the sky. Because if you figure, this blue is different than this blue. If you notice, this is more of a purple blue. So you can get the light there. This is more of a purpley blue, and this is more of a bright blue at the bottom, okay? Now here's a tip. If you want to add a tiny bit of red to it, you know, it looks crazy, add a little bit more white, and you see how it's starting to get to that purpley color? Just kind of let that kind of purpley color go in there. And then if you've got that more gray blue, or should I say a different blue, again, it doesn't matter which shades exactly that you have, just so that the blue is a little bit different. And if you wanted to just add a little bit of white to the original lake blue, that is fine, okay? So just kind of keep sliding in there, okay? I want you to add a little bit of white. So you're not picking up, notice I'm not taking up a lot of paint from my palette. I'm just using what I have left over on my brush, and I'm sliding it across, okay? And it's kind of fun to see all the different shades that are starting to happen. If you notice, it's a little bit lighter up here, right? I'm gonna move this reference image back a little bit, okay? So I'm gonna add just a little bit more light blue to the top. And push it down in there, okay? So we've got, see that little bit, hint of red in there? That's from where I picked up a little bit of red to give the sky a little bit more interest, because you don't want it to just be a boring, straight, one color blue. You want to add a little color to it. Let's go back to our reference image. If you notice, there's a bit of yellow at the top here. So we're going to add that yellow in, but I want to wait until this is dry, because if you don't wait until this is dry, then if you remember in class, art class, if you start to add that yellow in, it's going to turn the sky green. Okay, we don't want that right now. So far, what you've got is the lake down here and the sky up here. All right, so we're getting there. Now, I know I had to flip it around for you. Now I'm going to go flip it back, okay? So now you're looking at the painting right side up, all right? You've got the sky at the top in front of you and the lake at the bottom. So now what we're going to do is get our smaller brush. And if you noticed, when I first started, I had blue and a few different yellows. I have no green listed. So I would like to just use this class to just play around with the yellows and the blues and see what kind of greens I can come up with, okay? So I think that might be fun. So I'm just gonna leave my palette here. Let's get that yellow and put a little bit of white in there and kind of mix that up. Let's grab a little blue and see what we come up with. Okay, not too bad. Let's add just a little bit of black. I probably added a little bit too much blue in there. And again, if you don't want to mix your own greens, that's fine, because it can be a little frustrating. Goodness knows we don't want things to be frustrating right now, right? And shoot, I might actually change gears. But if you notice, see how I already started to have a couple different color greens. Let's pick up a little bit more. Actually, now that I think of it, this color right here, it was looking black, but it is a very, 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 very dark green. So that's actually a good thing. So now I've got this sort of minty green, and I've got this dark green. So forgive me, I thought that was black, but it turns out it is a darker green, okay? So you still have all this loaded on your brush, and I want you to pick up a little bit more of the dark green. I put my palette down. And let's go back to our reference. We're going to see how dark it is down here at the base. We're going to do very dark right along the lake line, okay? And we've done this before. We're just going to tap in the green down here. So it's very dark all along the base, right? I'm going to pick up a little bit more dark, okay? And just kind of go all the way across. Like so, okay? Just a little bit dark. And you can keep using the same brush. And if you notice it's kind of coming down into the lake, that's okay, not to worry. But the bottom line is you want to make sure it's darker green along the water's edge, okay? So see how quick that was? Now see how it kind of ran down the edge a little bit? That's okay. I'm just going to pick up just a little bit of blue, and I'm going to turn it back around. And in fact, it's good that I've got this blue right on my brush, the same brush that had the green on it. And I'm just going to run a little line right under the tree line on top of the water, okay? And then I'm just going to kind of bring down just a little bit of that green into the water, okay? Almost like a reflection, okay? So see how I took a little bit of that green and I kind of ran it down into the water, okay? So I went back to our handy reference photo. If you notice, these shrubs or trees, whatever, are super high, and these are really small. That's okay. This time I'm going to just do kind of just a lower tree line, okay? And again, like I always say, every time I paint something, it's totally different each time. But what I would like to do is pick up some of that lighter green, and let's tap some of that lighter green up at the top here. It's very hard to see the difference because the colors are so similar. So what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of yellow. I'm going to tap some yellow right up at the top there, okay? Just tapping in just a tiny bit of yellow right at the top. So see, it's starting to give it just a little bit of definition. I'm going to flip it back so I can see it for myself, okay? And then I want you to keep, maybe my brush is getting a little dry and yours might be too. So don't forget to tap it back in to the water so it's nice and loose, okay? So here I'm picking up a little bit more yellow, a little bit more green on my brush. Same brush, so you can use that tiny little brush. By the end of it, I might have a really big stack of shrubs and trees. I started out thinking it was going to be little, but it might end up being big. We'll see. The cool thing is it's going to be good either way. Okay, so all you're doing is you're taking the top of the brush. You're not going back and forth. Notice how I'm going tap, 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 right? So I'm going to pick up a little bit of just straight yellow. Just highlight these tops. So see how this right here is kind of pinky? So you've got to figure that light source is going to hit right at the top there. So you want to add some yellow. Little yellow highlights, little yellow baby highlights to the top there. Almost like it's sun-kissed. And then remember down along here, this light is not going to hit down here. It's just going to hit at the tops there, okay? So I'm loading my brush back up with just some darker green. I'm going to fill in some darker green down at the base, and then it's just going to kind of drift off, okay? All right. So maybe pick up just a little bit more, maybe a little bit of that minty sort of green. Kind of add that in there to the top. Maybe it's a different type of tree, right? And remember, just make sure you stay kind of right at the top. Don't go too far in. So see how we're starting to get the tree line there? Yeah? And if you notice, this part should be dry by now. So is the sky part, right? So I'm going to flip it back around. This time, I really do want to rinse my brush. Make sure you have your water bowl. Remember, you can pause me at any time. Now I'm going to get another brush. I'm using this one. It's kind of a flat, roundy sort of one. I'm just going to dip it into just a tiny bit of yellow. And I'm going to add just a bit of yellow to the sky, just right up in there, okay? It's thunderstorming here. I don't know if you can hear it. And add just a little bit of white, just to kind of calm the sky down. Sometimes you don't want it to be so blue. Sometimes it comes out just a little too blue. And if you notice my brush, I'm taking my brush strokes, make sure it's centered, and I'm just going back and forth, okay? Just adding a little, ooh, that's probably too much yellow, rats. That's all right. Again, it's paint, we can go over it, right? Remember, we've got that nice pink right there. Actually, that's not bad. Sometimes, like Bob Ross says, that's a happy mistake, right? I'm just gonna add a little bit more white over here. And if you notice, I'm kind of dodging around the blue sky. I'm not filling it in completely because you figure clouds are kind of here and there, not necessarily a rhyme or reason. So see how that's coming along? Bring it forward. There you go, see that? Now we need to add a little interest down into that ocean, okay? But back to this part, see how I've got the sky is kind of broken up a little bit? If you notice, I've got darker down here and lighter up here. I still have a little bit of this yellow on my brush. I'm just gonna kind of put it into the lake. Just little highlights, almost like it's just little highlights. Almost like the sun is kissing the lake, right? Okay, I'm gonna flip it back. Okay. So now we're gonna do these little sailboats, okay? Right now I've got 1, 2, 3. And if you notice, you could consider them as triangles, right? So to make it easy, think of it as a triangle. One side's puffy and one side kind of dents in, all right? So you might say, oh gosh, I don't want to wreck my painting. I like it just like this. Hey, if you like it just like this, leave it just like this. But if you want to give a sailboat a try, give it a try. One thing to take note is that the sailboat's coming all the way up here. Here's the tree line, and see how far up it goes? So you want to look and say, I'm going to bring my sailboat down here so that it kind of goes up into the tree line so the perspective's right, all right? So you want to get a smaller brush. I've got this little tiny liner brush just to start. And what you're going to do is dip your brush into the water, okay, so that the brush is a little loose and wet. And then I want you to dip that brush right into the white, okay? And I'm going to look at the reference image myself, all right? And so you want to do is, I'm just going to put a little line down here just to kind of say, okay, that's going to be the base of the boat right there. And then what I'm going to do is bring up the sail. So see, it's just a little line, and then it comes around, and then it peaks. So come around, and then it peaks, all right? So that's the front of the sail. Then what I want you to do, the same brush with the white on it, I want you to take a line and bring it right down. Okay, see how I did that? Let me show you. So what we did was we did this first little line down here. Then we took a little bubble. We made a little bubble up here, okay? And then we did this long line. So what this long line is, I'm not so good at what sailboat parts are, but that long line is this one right here. It's like where it holds the sailboat up, right? And then this is that white line. And we haven't even dealt with this part back here. This is kind of orangey, but today I think I'm going to make it a little bit red. All right, so we'll get to that in a minute. But right now I just want you to just kind of outline, kind of place where these little guys are going to go. So you've got one there. Then I'm going to put one maybe here. So remember what we did before, we put a little line, tiny little line, and then we just kind of brought up the sail, kind of fat, and then we brought a little tip up, right? Then we bring this line straight down. Straight down. Okay, so that's 1, 2, and then if you notice, this little guy is off to the edge. We're just gonna have him kind of doing his own thing over here. All right, so on this one you still need that little line, right? But all you need is that part, and bring it down. Actually, we'll just do it that way. Okay, so now you've got 1, 2, 3 sailboats. One guy's kind of off to the races, and then you've got these two. All right, so far so good. All right, so you can rinse your brush out if you want. I'm just gonna rinse it out just a little bit, and I'm gonna pick up the yellow and the red, and I make myself a little bit of orange, okay? My orange is looking a little bit like a coral color. Which, hey, that's okay. Coral's pretty. We'll run with it. So if you notice, the orangey sort of color is in the back, right? So it's back here. And then look at the reference image. Just kind of comes back here, and that kind of drags out, right? Kind of drags out. So make sure you load your brush. And if you want to have a little bit more definition, add a little bit of red. So you're just going to fill this in. Remember, this part's nice and dry. You want to make sure this is dry before you add that sailboat on, or the sails, I should say, right? Okay, so I'm getting a little bit more yellow, a little bit more orange, and I'm going to just kind of layer that on top. So it's starting to look like a sailboat. So I just kind of brought it here. See that? Let me flip it around. See how it's starting to look like that, sort of. You just have to take it one step at a time. So while I'm doing these sailboats, let's see if you can hear this. I queued up Christopher Cross. So let's listen while we paint. How about that? I love that song. I hope you enjoyed that too. Okay, so if you noticed, I went ahead and I put in the 3 sailboats, right? So they're starting to come along. And remember, a reference here. Each of them had a bit of a darker base. You can see right in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that darker base. I'm probably going to, well, I did kind of run out of paint, but I've got some blue and some red, maybe a little bit more of that green. Just add a little yellow to it. I'm just going to make a really dark color. Here's the deal, if you keep adding different colors, you're going to get a dark color, and it's going to kind of read like, you know, right now it's reading a bit purple, which is fine. Just want it to kind of pop a little bit off the canvas. Now, again, if you have straight black and you don't feel like mixing your own color, that's not a problem. Go ahead and just grab that black. Okay, and so what you want to do is you just want to do a line just under the boat, just under the boat. Okay, so I'm just doing a little line right under the boat. Okay, and then I'm also going to do a little bit of a line in here. You rinse my brush. Remember, the sailboat is a little bit of detail work. So you want to make sure that your brush is really wet, not too wet, but wet enough that you can actually get it to move, okay? And then I'm going to add just a little bit more. I'm just going to put a little blue, or should I say black, in there. So it kind of gives it a little bit of dimension. Okay, so now we're sailing, right? And if you notice, back to the reference image, there's almost a little color coming off, and it's kind of making it look like the water is moving, right? Because right now it doesn't look like there's too much movement, right? So we want to add a little bit of movement. And you can do that with adding a little bit of yellow, maybe a tiny bit of white. Don't overdo it, okay? I have a lot on my brush. And if you tend to put too much paint on, you're like, oh, I overdid it, because I kind of overdid it. I put a little bit too much on there, right? I can go back with another brush, put that brush away, pick up another brush. I've just got this squared off brush. I'm going to dip it in the blue, and I'm just going to kind of go over it just a little bit so it just looks like it's blending into, so the water is just kind of blending away, right? There we go. Okay. So now that you've got that, we might want to go back in and highlight the sailboat just a little bit, okay? Just to make it pop. So, and what I'm going to do is just add a tiny bit of white just to the outer edge. To the outer edge there, okay? And then what we might want to do is go back into that dark kind of blue-black that we created and just add a little bit more in there. Just a tiny bit, okay? And then I might take a pop of red, just add a little bit of red just on the inside. Again, that just gives it just a little bit of dimension. Maybe if you need a little something down here, maybe it needs to pop. Ooh, I just saw lightning. Good thing we're not really on the lake right now doing this. We're just pretending. Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, so here we go. This is it. Hopefully you can see it pretty good. The light's not terrific. The colors aren't showing through as much, but this is a good representation of this. I'm gonna bring myself back here. Okay guys, so I really hope you enjoyed yourself and you had a good time. And remember, you can always replay these classes over and over again. And I hope you had fun with the Christopher Cross song. I know I did. Let's see if I can just do this. All right. So there we go, sailing. And if, again, any questions, let me know. Bye-bye, guys.
Hey, are you awake? I know how hard it can be.